Good afternoon, children. Today we are going to learn about a new topic that is called voice change. So, voice change has two parts, which is active and passive. Now, before knowing what is active and passive or how do we change the voice, we will have to know first what is voice and what happens in it, and what do we need to change the voice or to know about it. Now, first of all, you see what is voice? Voice is the term used to describe whether a verb is active or passive. So, before we know that the verb is active or passive, we will have to know it in very simple words, because this term active or passive, this thing is very new to you. Am I right? So, now you see what is meant by active or passive is here, that when the subject of the verb is doing the action of the verb, so that will be referred as in the active voice. There will be a sentence, just for example, the dog bite the postman. We'll take a sentence, and in that sentence we will have to see that which is the subject, which is the verb, and which is the object. And then we will have to see that the subject of the verb is doing the action. If the subject of the verb is doing the action, then the verb will be said to be in the active voice. And on the other hand, when the subject of the verb is acted upon, the action is happening but that is acted upon by the subject, then the postman, just like the postman was bitten, the verb is said to be in the passive voice. So there is a difference between active voice and passive voice. When the work is happening directly or the action is performed by the subject directly, then it is referred as in the active voice. And if the work or the action is being acted upon the subject, then it is known as the passive voice. So the voice of a verb, it tells you that whether the subject is acting or is it acted upon. What happens is, in a very simple way, there is no change happening in the action. That has to be remembered. No action is changing. If in a sentence is given that the dog bite the postman, and when we see here the postman was bitten, no action has changed. Only our focus has changed. Here we had focused on the subject, okay, the dog, and here the focus has changed to the postman. This is the only thing which happens in case of active or passive. When our focus is on the subject, when we know that the subject of the verb is acting something, then it is active voice. And if the object or the subject of the verb is being acted upon, then we will know that it is in the passive voice. So just see, the action remains the same, but just only the focus is different. The subject of an active verb governs the processor as an actor, agent, and the action may take an object as its goal. Now, for finding out the object, we already know, we just have to question the verb as what. If you see here, the dog bite the postman. If you question what did the dog bite or whom did the dog bite, we'll get the answer, the postman. So here the dog is acting as an agent and the action is taking a goal as the postman. That is it. So the passive voice indicates the subject is being acted upon. Let's see some more examples. What is active voice? Let's see. When the subject is performing the action, okay, then the verb is said to be in the active voice. And when do we call it as passive voice? When the action is being done. If the subject is having the action done to it, some action is done to the subject, then the verb is said to be in the passive voice. Now let's see some example. See, the dog ate our turkey. The dog is the subject here, ate is the verb here, and our turkey is the object. So when the dog is acting here, what is the dog acting? The dog is eating. Okay, so when the dog is eating, what it is eating? It is eating our turkey. So the dog ate our turkey. This is in the active voice. Now if we have to change this to the passive voice, then we will have to write here, we will first have to bring our object in the place of subject. Accordingly, we will have to place the auxiliary verb depending on our tense. Then we will be putting the past participle or the third form of our verb eat or ate, and lastly the dog or the subject will be brought in the place of object. So this is the pattern how we change from active to passive. Well, that will be discussed in the next video, but now you just focus on how to recognize or identify which voice is in the active and in the passive. Next, we'll see some very usual examples. First, we'll check in the active voice. Now see, Lee ate the pies. The action is happening. What is the action happening here? Eating. Who is eating? Who is the subject? Who is doing the action? Lee. And the action is getting acted upon whom? The pies. Okay. So that's how Lee is the subject, ate is the verb, and the pies is the object. Now, you see the same thing is written here. The subject is doing the action of the verb. Okay, the action is happening. The subject is performing the action of eating, and that is being acted on the pies, the object. Another example, let's see. We play hopscotch. So we is the subject, play is the verb, and hopscotch is the object. So that's how the subject is doing the action of the verb. Now this same sentences we'll check but in the passive voice. See, Lee ate the pies. The pies were eaten by Lee. So this will be written in the passive voice. This is the passive voice of this sentence. Next, another one, we play hopscotch. Hopscotch is played by us. Since we is the subject, play is the verb, and hopscotch is the object. So what happens is subject comes in the place of object, which has happened here. Object goes to the place of subject. That's why we have brought hopscotch at first. Okay, in the passive voice what happens? The object comes in the place of subject, and the subject in the active voice goes in the place of in the case of passive voice. The object comes in the place of subject if it in case of passive voice, and if it is case of passive voice, the subject will come in the place of object, which is the same thing happening here. Hopscotch has come here in the place of subject. Then according to the subject, because this is our subject now, right now this is our subject, hopscotch is our subject. So according to this, it is a singular noun. It is a single game, name of a single game. So hopscotch is, we will be putting is, the auxiliary is, because our sentence is in present tense. And then we will be putting the past participle of the word or the verb play. And then lastly we will be adding a by. Okay, and then we will be bringing our we in the object's place, but then the we will be changed and the object form of we will come, which is us. So this is how we identify or recognize what active or passive voice is. In the next video we will learn about how do we change active to passive or passive to active. Okay, so that's all for today. Thank you.